When you think about an iconic city, New York City has to be at the top of the list, right? It's a global center for pretty much everything. But what's really incredible is that the city we all picture, that skyline, that energy, it's all relatively new. The story of New York is really a story of constant radical reinvention. So let's dive in and explore how a tiny little outpost transformed over 400 years. Today, New York City is home to over 8.3 million people. I mean, just think about that number for a second. It's a true megacity, a sprawling metropolis that really feels like the center of the world. The scale is just staggering. But it wasn't always this way. Not even close. If you could go back 400 years, you wouldn't even recognize the place. So how on earth did that tiny settlement become this global powerhouse? That's the big question we're going to tackle. To really understand New York, we have to go back to the very beginning. I mean, way before the skyscrapers, before the English, and yep, even before the Dutch. We have to start with the land itself, its original people, and then the arrival of a new colonial power. For thousands upon thousands of years, long before any European ships appeared on the horizon, this whole area was known as Lenape-Hoking. It was home to the Lenape people. They lived in a world of dense forests and clean rivers, hunting, fishing, and farming. Their history here is incredibly deep. And then, things started to change, and they changed fast. While an Italian explorer first spotted the harbor way back in 1524, it was really Henry Hudson's claim for the Dutch in 1609 that set the wheels in motion. That led to the founding of Fort Amsterdam in 1625, the very seat of the city, which defined the area right up until the English showed up in 1664. And this brings us to one of history's most famous and, let's be honest, complicated transactions. In 1626, the head of the Dutch colony tried to make their claim official by purchasing Manhattan from a local Lenape group. The price? A bundle of traded goods worth about 60 guilders, which is roughly $1,000 in today's money. You can actually see how these early conflicts physically shaped the city. By 1653, the Dutch were getting pretty nervous about an English attack, so they built a big defensive wall on the northern edge of their settlement. Well, that wall is long gone, but its path became one of the most famous streets in the entire world, Wall Street. Well, that wall didn't hold off the English forever. The city was about to go through its first major reinvention, changing from a Dutch trading post into a strategic English colony, and eventually a super important hub for a brand new nation. So, in 1664, an English fleet sailed in and just took control. No big fight or anything. The whole colony of New Netherland was renamed New York, in honor of the Duke of York. And the city, New Amsterdam, also became New York. It was a new name for a whole new era. Now, under English rule, the city grew, but its prosperity came at a terrible, terrible cost. Slavery, which the Dutch had already introduced, became a massive part of the economy. This chart is pretty stark. By the 1740s, enslaved people made up a full 20% of New York's population. That's 1 in 5 people. It's a crucial and often overlooked part of the city's foundation. As tensions with Great Britain started to boil over, New York became this hotbed of revolutionary activity. It was a base for the Sons of Liberty, and it hosted the Stamp Act Congress, where the colonies got together to protest British taxes. But, ironically, the city was actually occupied by the British for most of the war. After the American victory, though, New York got its reward. In 1785, it was named the very first capital of the United States. Okay, let's jump forward to the 19th century, because this period would redefine the city more than any other. This was the era of just explosive growth. It was fueled by trade, industry, and wave after wave of immigrants coming from all over the world. And when I say explosive, I mean it. In 1800, New York had about 60,000 residents. Just 50 years later, that number had jumped to over 500,000. The reason? Well, huge projects like the Erie Canal turned the city into the nation's #1 port. And people just poured in from Europe and beyond, all looking for a new start. But this massive boom in population came with some huge problems. Immigrant families were crammed into crowded, unsanitary tenement buildings, which were hotbeds for diseases like cholera. Notorious gangs roamed the streets, and the city was rocked by disasters, from the Great Fire of 1835 to the incredibly violent draft riots during the Civil War. Now we're getting to the late 19th and early 20th centuries, and this is when the city began its most visible transformation.
This was the era of steel, stone, and incredible ambition, the period that forged the iconic skyline that we all recognize today. And the pace of change was just relentless. I mean, boom, boom, boom. The Brooklyn Bridge stitched the city together in 1883. The Statue of Liberty became this beacon of hope in 1886, greeting millions who would soon arrive at Ellis Island. The first subway line started moving people underground in 1904. And then, in 1931, the Empire State Building just pierced the clouds, a symbol of pure architectural confidence. This era was also an age of wild extremes. The Roaring Twenties were this time of jazz clubs and secret speakeasies. But that party came to a crashing halt with the Wall Street crash of 1929. The Great Depression that followed brought mass unemployment, and desperate people even built shantytowns. They called them Hoovervilles, right inside Central Park.
So after surviving the Depression and then World War II, New York found itself in this really unique position. While other major cities around the world were in ruins, New York rose to a whole new level of global power. It became home to the United Nations headquarters and really cemented its status as the world's capital of finance, art, and culture.
From a tiny Dutch settlement to a revolutionary hub, an immigrant metropolis, and a global capital, New York has proven over and over again that it can reinvent itself. No matter what, it gets back up and it changes. Which really leaves us with the ultimate question. After 400 years of constant evolution, what comes next?